Welcome to the RJI Futures Lab, where we help you make your organization more innovative. I'm Ruben Stern. This week, telling stories with satellite images and using data to cover breaking news. It can be difficult to show what's happening on the ground in areas that are unsafe or inaccessible for journalists. But as New York Times graphics editor Derek Watkins explains, publicly available satellite data can help.
The New York Times graphics desk is experimenting with using government satellite data to create maps and imagery when there aren't reporters on the ground.
We've been starting to look into public data sets that largely the U.S. government releases of satellite imagery. It's often been to report on international stories like the ISIS's invasion of Iraq and Syria and Israel's war in Gaza. Particularly for international stories where it's difficult to get reporters in on the ground. We had been using satellite imagery from satellite imagery providers, and then it was just kind of a natural progression. Once we realized that the stuff is freely available that we can grab, it's kind of a natural progression to start trying to check it out and see whether we could use it.
The work ranges from small daily graphics that place text or images onto a single satellite image to larger projects that combine multiple images to tell a complex story.
The story that we did on ISIS invading Syria and Iraq, I think the way that they invaded along these two rivers, the Euphrates and the Tigris, and kind of the two kind of corridors of population in that area. We did a story around that I think ended up being really kind of well presented, I think, and kind of forward-looking, but also not so novel that it was unusable for readers.
The government satellite imagery often comes in a difficult format that needs to be reworked to create usable maps. Watkins says there are other simpler options for using satellite mapping to create graphics.
It's freely available online. The government sets up, NASA and the USGS set up these kind of portals that you can access imagery through. The kind of sticking point is that it's just a bit of a clunky interface sometimes, so it can be difficult if you don't know the right combination of buttons to click. Aside from government imagery sources, stuff like Google Earth has been really helpful for stuff like that, where basically you can get a subscription to Google Earth and then you're able to, at the very least, look at all of they have historical imagery in their kind of system that you can look back at.
Although some satellite imagery requires complex software, the Landsat imagery used by the New York Times can be developed in Photoshop. For the Futures Lab, this is Katie Mersman.
Along with this video, you'll find links to satellite imagery sources, as well as some online tutorials. Dashboards and databases are typically used for lengthy investigations, but as the Futures Lab's Tatiana Daria reports, some news organizations are using collections of data to cover breaking news as it unfolds.
A bridge collapses, a plane crashes. We've all been there, trying to report on breaking news when there's not a lot to talk about.
A lot of us don't realize that all we have to do is take a deep breath, sigh a little bit, and put our heads together and start planning, and we can actually get more information about the breaking news to give to our viewers, to our readers, to those who are online. If we're using an online platform, we can do that in real time with data and information that is currently available on the internet. All we need to do is have the skills, have the knowledge, and take the patience and the time to find it.
For 30 years, Stephen Stock has covered everything from plane crashes to hurricanes. He says preparation is key.
A year or so ago, about 18 months ago, an airplane crashed at San Francisco International Airport. 3 people died. It was the first fatal crash in 87 years. Within 2 hours of it crashing, we were able to tell you the details on the flight glide slope, the fact that the plane came in an unstabilized approach, the fact that this was the first fatal accident of a 777 made by Boeing in American soil. We were able to give details and enrich viewers about what was really happening in real time that no one else did, not on the national level, not local competitors, no one, because we took the time to do background research on that airplane and on what was happening.
The secret? The N registration number on the plane that allows reporters to find all kinds of information about the aircraft. But how does one actually get the data? Cheryl Phillips from Stanford University has some tips.
You want to have databases either in-house or readily where you know where to go get them. So kind of basic things like anything related to transportation inspections, anything related to public employees, because then that may be a way to find people, property records, all of those kinds of things. You need to know how to be able to go and get that data. And you need to be able to practice so that you know how to analyze data in advance. IRE's database library has federal data sets on all kinds of inspection records. So becoming familiar with that is really good. And then just having some practice so that you know how to use data and manipulate it is also a good thing. The other thing that you need to do is find the topic experts, so the beat reporters.
That's what she did for this story. Phillips was able to learn why the bridge went down in just under an hour.
And so I got the most recent bridge inspection data. They put the transportation beat reporter right next to me. I started pulling in the data, analyzing it, taking a look at it, and he would ask me questions and I would try to find the answers based out of that database so that we could turn that around into a story, within an hour from the collapse of the bridge about what was the history of this bridge, what kind of problems did it have, why did it collapse, aside from being hit, what made that difference. And so we were able to add a lot of context right away. And then we started using that same data set to make a map to be able to show people the problem bridges in the state of Washington, and turned that around within about 24 hours.
It sounds simple, but the small tricks can really help you beat the competition and stay on top of the game. For the Futures Lab, this is Tatiana Daria.
And that's it for this report from the RJI Futures Lab. I'm Ruben Stern. We'll see you in the future.